Want to bring in New York Congressman Peter King. The congressman is a member of the House Intelligence Committee, which is one of the 3 committees that wrote that report. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Very welcome, Maria.
We have a lot to cover here. First of all, let's talk about the report. Was this basically a bullying from the top, basically saying, look, let's make sure these reports indicate that it's not that bad? I mean, how does this happen that, in fact, the analysts on the ground are painting a picture that's actually not realistic?
Maria, there's no doubt that this happened, that somewhere the books were cooked, and that the analysts would submit their reports, their analysis, and when the final product came out, the mistakes were always on the side of it being better than it really was. And whether it was Ramadi or Mosul, every instance, the analysis was changed, and it was made to be a rosier picture. Now, how high up in the chain it goes, that has not yet been determined. The investigation is ongoing. The Defense Department has been reluctant to turn over to the task force documents. They're really slow walking it through. There is an Inspector General's report going on, but there's no doubt it happened. That happened, and it put lives at risk. And the question now is how high up this goes. But ultimately, the president is commander-in-chief. And I think at the very least we're going to find that he created the atmosphere. He created the mood to show that al-Qaeda was defeated, that ISIS was a JV team,
right,
and that his policies were working.
So, you know, the outrage, put the outrage aside that they were lying about the realistic situation, and they obviously were getting pressure to do so, making it rosier than it was. What are the implications of this, Congressman? Because I imagine this dictates a lot of stuff, from morale on the ground to the amount of equipment we're using, the number of troops on the ground. What kind of implications does something like this have?
I think it's probably General Jack Keane who explained it best. This is life and death, because now you're having tactical and strategic decisions based on analysis which is faulty. And if the intelligence is saying, the phony intelligence is saying that the enemy is weak, that the enemy is retreating, that the enemy is on defense, when in fact they are very well armed, very well trained, and ready to attack, that puts our troops at risk. And it also puts the strategic position on the ground at risk, which I believe is why we lost Ramadi and why we lost Mosul, and why we still haven't been able to regain Mosul.
Wow.
Because, again, it was faulty intelligence given.
Congressman Harlan Hill here. Isn't this par for the course for the Obama administration? I mean, this is a president that compared deaths to terrorism to slip and falls in bathtubs. He compared them to the JV team. He just fundamentally doesn't, he has downplayed the threat of terrorism. He's downplayed the threat of ISIS. And I think that has clouded his vision when addressing the rise of ISIS.
Absolutely. And you can go back to workplace violence when Major Assad was killing people at Fort Hood. And this whole thing with the JV team, President Obama says that his intelligence people failed him. Well, I'm on the Intelligence Committee. This is not part of CENTCOM. And we were told in 2013 how dangerous ISIS was. General Mike Flynn in early 2014 was saying how dangerous ISIS was. The president just chooses to ignore that. The president hears what he wants to hear. He really had this vision that the wars were caused by George Bush, and by extending the hand of friendship, that he was going to bring peace to the region, and that's why he got our troops out of Iraq, which I think is the worst decision any president has made in recent memory.
Which is why Trump is calling him the founder of ISIS. And I know that a half of it is he's being sarcastic, but at the same time, right, he's pointing to that performance as how ISIS became stronger when the U.S. pulled out of Iraq. Morgan.
Yeah, Congressman, thank you for bringing this report to light. As a former intelligence analyst, my mind is blown just reading your committee's report today, and I think nothing is more important than protecting the sanctity of the intelligence analysis. I have another follow-up question for you. Your report also says that the statements and testimonies before your committee had significantly more positive statements than what the actual events on the ground were. So were people going in front of your committee and actually lying to your committee about what was going on the ground as it relates to ISIS?
Well, you had the general who was head of defense intelligence, not General Flynn, but his successor, coming before the committee and saying that, for instance, with Ramadi, that ISIS was on defense and they were in a weak position. And within weeks after that, Ramadi fell. So this was, again, we have to find out, and again, they've been uncooperative, but we have to find out where this came from. Obviously, it came from somewhere up high. How high up the chain of command, that's what has to be determined. And again, this was a special task force formed by the committee, and they, when they bring in people, for instance, who answer questions, who are volunteering to tell what happened to them, there is their superiors are sitting in the room. So there's this implied pressure which is making it more and more difficult to get the information. Having said that, it was felt that it was important to get this interim report out now. I think when the final picture comes out, it's going to even be far worse than this report.
So just to be clear, this is more than just intelligence analysis. This is press releases. This is statements before committees. This is a concerted effort.
Oh, right. This was a full court press. It wasn't just some internal document that didn't go anywhere. This worked its way into presidential news conferences. It worked its way into congressional testimony. It certainly worked its way throughout the media. This became almost part of the Obama campaign.
Congressman, this is a very serious situation. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Marie, as
We'll
always.
see you soon.
Have a good
Congressman
weekend.
Peter King there.